welcome one and all. Time to continue with lockdown hobbying stuff. So, over the last couple of days, we've assembled quite a few things. We've got Abyssal Dwarf Grotesques, this is the champion. Very tasty he is indeed. And regular Grotesques as well, although is there such thing as a regular Grotesque because they're so hideous formed? There's nothing really regular about them. So we assembled these bad boys. Then we made a start on the Hellfiend as well, which is currently looking like this. This is such a huge meaty chunk of resin, obviously there's going to be more green stuff work required on this than on the smaller Grotesques. And I thought maybe I'd made a mistake in assembling this beast, because when I went to put some of the pieces together, find them all. So let me see if I can show you what the issue is here. This front part, you'd think perhaps that it's supposed to attach to the ground or the floor of the platform, but it doesn't actually fit on there very well. And if it does, then it's a huge gap between that and the neck piece there. So after some research and some advice, I found out that it's supposed to sit snugly up against the neck piece there, and these bits of the fence aren't supposed to actually rest on the platform. They're slightly raised, so that when these side fences go up around about here, then that'll sit on there and line up with the fence like so. So I don't think there is an issue with that after all. So that's all cleaned up, so I'll be assembling some more of that very soon. I've also got this guy, this lovely converted Nightstalker model, this Dread Fiend. Got him primed up, so I'm going to be painting him. Making a start on that anyway. Got some nice fancy pants contrast paints here. Got pink and purple, which are going to be the main colours. I think in addition to the purple wash that I've already got, that should be enough to do pretty much all the base areas. I also got this technical X-Wraith flame paint as well, which I'm not going to use on him, but I'm going to use that on some Nightstalkers in the future. This guy is going to have some nice purple legs, and he's going to be the tester before I dive in and start trying to paint this monstrosity. This would be a lot more difficult to clean the paint off if it goes wrong on him, so I'm going to test it on a much less difficult model to start with. So I've got a couple of people in the chat at the moment, so that's nice. Got Graham and Stu Rat are in there right now. So what I'm doing at the moment is scraping off mould lines and any flash from the pieces of the Hellfiend crew, which is a very, very exciting process. I'm sure you'll agree once you start witnessing it. Stu says, I do need to go through my bits tub and find a giant's head and a pair of legs. Yeah, I would definitely recommend anyone to attempt the same conversion that I have, or at least similar. So I'm going to be doing a bit of elbow scrape here. Whenever you're removing mould lines, it's always important to make sure that the bit you're trying to scrape off is actually a mould line and not just a bit of detail. For example, on this guy's arm, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little tiny kind of nub there, and I'm not sure whether that's a connection needs to be snipped off or whether it's part of the model. So I'm going to leave that for the moment, and then I'll see some pictures later on, and if that looks like it's not supposed to be part of the model, it will be removed. Always got to be careful with that. Dwarven Darkness is here as well. Hello there. Very exciting times all around. If you're a big fan of watching models being scraped and assembled, it's just drowning in content at the moment, aren't you? Anyone's got any topics they'd like me to discuss while doing this very exciting procedure? Free to drop them in the chat. The live painting is going to be part because we haven't seen any of that yet. Quite a few people tuned in last night for the Andean Rem play Vermintide, so that was fun. Doing more of that soon. I'm going to have to continue Space Hulk Deathwing as well. Just the kind of red hot sizzling PC gaming content that's going to tide people over during these turbulent and difficult times. Dwarven Darkness, sizzling content, yes it is. It's truly sizzling. If this content were in a pan, you would want to stand as far away as possible and maybe have some kind of eye shield. The sizzle is strong. Scraping away at the bottom feet of these guys. Got to be careful with the bottom of feet. You might think it's not an important part because nobody will see it, but if you accidentally take off too much, if the foot is supposed to be not perfectly level underneath, you might affect the way that it rests on the base, or in this case, on the back of the. Dwarven Darkness, so did you get a fix for the Hellfane miniature? Yes, I think I figured out what the issue was. My mistake was assuming that the fence is supposed to touch the ground of the platform, when it's actually not. It's supposed to connect up to the other fence pieces, which I hadn't put on yet. And it rests slightly above the floor level. They're pretty. Some of these do look a little bit on the bent side, so I assume a bit of hot water will straighten them out. What's everyone else working on at the moment? Because it's anything quite this spicy. Maybe some decent flavours out there. Fairly confident with this knife, even in the areas, because it's blunt enough that it shouldn't slice into my flesh. Unlike the saw that did this damage on this finger here, which is healing up nicely. I don't expose it to the elements constantly just yet. Yeah, there's not much in the way of mould lines on these pieces. Change. Nice change in general. This line of resin stuff from Mantic have a huge amount of mould lines at all, really. The worst offender for mould lines is probably the Grotesque champion so far, but even he wasn't too bad. And the Hellfane had some excess bits dangling with it, but they were easy to remove. It's just a big giant chunk, so there's bound to be some flash on it. Dwarven Darkness is fortunate enough to still be working, but in the evenings, working on more Abyssal Dwarf. Good. Excellent. Hopefully everyone's been able to get their hands, or almost everyone's been able to get their hands on Abyssal. I know Mantic's warehouse is still operating. I would assume some places are more difficult to get stock. It's tasty stuff. reading the statement from Mantic regarding keeping the warehouse open. And it seems like their warehouse is vast enough. They have a small enough number of staff in there that it should be pretty safe to work. Won't be coming into contact with people very often. And I don't know about you, but I would consider miniature distribution an essential. Rat is technically at work, but none of my students have asked for help, so I'm in wait mode. What kind of students are we talking here? Graham Rig. Had my own rodent problems. Darlings have been getting into my garage. I've solved the problem by fitting a new tick threshold where they've been chewing their way in. I haven't had any issues with rodents ever in this house. We did have ants in a couple of finding their way in somehow. So I blocked up some crevices where some pipes were going. And also just went round all the rooms and put ant powder along all the sides of the room, the corners and whatnot. The ants since. Presumably those methods worked, or the ants were just passing through, migrating to somewhere else. Just a couple of pistol arms now. Graham says Warlord reopened their website with minimal staff this morning. Well, hopefully that's good. It's good in terms of people will be able to get the miniatures they want, but hopefully it's being done responsibly, and that's actually a wise thing to do rather than. It's hard to judge without knowing the specific. So, their warehouse layout, how many staff they have, whether there's any danger being posed there. Stu says, accounting and office technology. I'm a tutor for a local college and today is the first day class online. Yes, if you're just doing online classes and no one's asking for help, sit there and can't you? I was looking into the possibilities for those kind of scrolling donation bars, where it'll tell you every time someone does, which then drives other people. Hey, that looks like fun. I'll go channel 2. Doesn't seem like it's going to be too set up if I want to proceed with that. Kind of want to do it half as a joke. Stopped seeing this channel opportunity for any serious growth. Mainly when I stopped focusing on Age of Sigmar, which leads to less growth in the channel. I think I would be at a lot more subscribers now, stuck with. But I just wasn't feeling motivated to do it because I wasn't really inspired by any of their games at that. So it's been mainly focused on Mantic, which of course pulling power base. There was a point that I would lose a subscriber every time I uploaded a video, just focusing on War so much. Lots of my subscribers didn't like it. Since 3rd edition hit though, my subscriber count has gone up a bit. It must be the new blood I don't put too much content up for Dread Ball or Dead Zone. They tend to get a lot less views, especially Dread Ball. Anytime I do a report on a Dread Ball tournament, it gets something like 86 views. Which is not to be sniffed at. I'm sure there are some people out there that would kill for 86 views. I've seen some channels, not just in Wargaming, but there are some in Wargaming. People are uploading videos almost every day and getting like 8 or 13 views on each video. And part of me thinks, why do they bother? And the other part of me thinks, they enjoy it and they're mainly just doing it for them and a select community. Then where's the harm in it? That's almost where I'm at in attitude towards the channel. Not you seeking. There are certain rules that you need to follow if you want to maximize ship. And I know what those rules are, I just don't follow most of them. Things like regular content at a set time. Encouraging people to subscribe, like the video before it's even started. Which, as annoying as I find it to see, obviously works because so many people do it. They wouldn't do it if it was having no effect. Okay, we've got these pieces all sliced up, ready to go. Let's see if we can assemble any of these. So presumably, this is the guy with the hammer. And let's see where his... this one. That looks like it matches, doesn't it? Is there anything that's supposed to go in his hand? Got the Hellfane box somewhere. No, he's just got a fist. And the other two guys have a staff and a pistol each. Yeah, that's pretty simple then. Okay, I think we'll be able to stick this guy together. I was worried anytime there's a model like this with a giant weapon, if they're holding it across their chest, sometimes it can get annoying to paint behind it. But in this instance, just got it to the side like that. Stu says, Dreadball died a hideous whimpering death around here late in the previous edition. One of the friendly local game stores had it in their old stock on the sale table for the last year. Yeah, Dreadball, it did dry up quite a bit. It seemed to be picking up a little bit this year, but then obviously a worldwide pandemic is going to put a stop to that. I think it struggled to compete. Feels like Blood Bowl coming back, and Guild Ball seems like it was quite popular. I've never played that. But Dread Ball had issues, I think. One of the issues I had with it at the time, it seemed like releasing so many teams in a short space of time, while okay for the short term, long term, how are you going to keep generating interest for the game? There aren't new teams coming out regularly. Because they've already got all the teams available because they did them all. I think they were all through various Kickstarters, weren't they, the Dread Ball teams? So I would have liked to have seen them hold off on releasing some of those teams and then kind of make a big deal about each team when it comes out and how it changes the rules and things like that. I think for Dread Ball that would be a fine approach to take. Doing this corner. Dead Zone isn't quite as dead as Dread Ball. Dead Zone's done alright at various times, just not as successful as King 4, it seems. although Dead Zone does have more. When someone gets into Dead Zone, they typically buy the Mantic models, whereas some people that get into Kings of War either already have some kind of fantasy army, or they pick another company's models to use instead. Pretty sure Warpath dead, but Dead Zone itself, it's hit and miss whether there's any kind of popularity for Dead Zone. I think maybe it's by area. But there have been some tournaments I've attended where there's been a lot of people there, and others where there's barely enough to make it worth actually holding the tournament in the first place. Whereas Kings of War is definitely thriving. Very nice model list. I glue his other arm on. Who says there was an orgy of buying and then ... Yeah, I think that is the problem. Got a bit to snip off. Yeah, that is the issue with Dread Ball. You need to keep interest, and you can't do that if everything's already released and then you just leave the game alone. I would assume that they would learn from that. Initially in Dread Ball Season 1, they had the different books that would come out with new factions in it. I think Edition 1 had like 3 or 4 called season books, I don't know. But they introduced a pile of new teams each time. But I think with 2nd edition, virtually everything was already out. Got so many teams that it's difficult to justify releasing any more, probably. But if they were going to pick one game and kind of focus on it as their tournament system, you would think Dread Ball would be a nice choice. Either that wasn't their plan, or other games have just managed to steal the potential audience. Okay, there's him stuck. And who's next? These pieces are interchangeable. Are these bodies identical? That would probably be blue. Don't think they're 100% identical. So let's find out if it matters which arm goes. That one quite him. And that one. That one. Making sure every single arm fits. Guy. That one actually seems like a really solid fit there, so I'm going to guess this guy is supposed to go with these two. Yeah, I think technically they could fit on either model, but those seem to be really secure fits. Try this one now. One feels like it fits very snugly. Yeah, I think I got it the correct. Yeah. Can have that gun. And the heads, I'm not sure it matters really. I think you can just position them to face anywhere you want. Are they the same heads? They're very similar, but they have slightly different beards. I don't think it matters which head goes on which. So let's get this guy's arms on. think one of the things that's made Dead Zone suffer, at least in my area, is Vanguard. A certain percentage of the events that used to be Dead Zone seem to have switched to Vanguard now. Rather than being in addition to those events, it seems like they've just replaced them. Not really that big a fan of Vanguard. I'll play it if it's part of a multi-game event. It's definitely not my favourite. There's him out ahead. And now I'll stick the other. Presumably each guy is going to be pointing his gun over the side of the platform. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, on the box they've kind of got the faces aimed kind of down the gun barrel, but not 100%. I'll probably do something like that. Pondering doing some more Face Hulk Deathwing today as well, but not 100%. Hasn't got very many views, but I wouldn't expect it to. That's not the kind of content you see on this channel. Just deciding which head best suits which. I think they are interchangeable. Graham Raig has bought the Vanguard rulebook thinking of buying the goblins. Yeah, all the Vanguard models are really nice. And I have got the Abyssal Dwarf booster set. I wanted that Hexcaster. It's the only one else of the set I've painted so far because I don't really have a need for Carnox at the moment. And the other hero you get in there is quite well. So his head's slightly to the side, this guy, but not huge. Then we'll have the other guy looking more gun barrel. Not quite down the barrel perfectly. More in that. Like so. So there's the crew, fully assembled. I'll probably end up pinning them onto the platform on the creature. So we'll put them to one side. And I think we might be ready to try putting some contrast paints on this guy actually. I haven't used them at all on a model like this before. I haven't used them in such a way that it's supposed to look done when the colours dry, which is kind of the way you're supposed to use them. I've used them mainly like washes so far, so we'll see how it looks. And I've got pink and purple, and looking at it, the pink one actually seems like it's darker. So let's give them a shake. So what colour do I want for his legs? Pink or purple? Thinking that most of the bodies are going to be purple. And then I'll darken extra bits by either a second layer applied in crevices or the shade. And then pink, maybe for other things that are sticking out of them perhaps. Could do pink on his head. Let's just try out the purple on the legs first, see how it looks. Not 100% confident. Here we go. So if this spills live on camera, I have a first front row seat to the action. Right, you know what? Let's get out my Citadel paint holder. Put the paint in there. Where I keep my big wash pots generally. So here we go. Those guys go away. Quite a nuisance back there. Okay, here we go. Let's try the legs with contrast paint. So I have used some contrast paints before. Again, not like this. Hopeful that it looks really good, then they'll be really easy to paint. Not getting my hopes up. May require a bit more work. Don't want to leave it too thick in any particular. Make sure everywhere's hit. If it just dried like that, I would be fairly satisfied, I think. But I've been around this game long enough to know that when paint's wet, that look doesn't really have much of a influence to how it's going to look usually. We'll get back to the comments in a minute. I just want to get all this area done while the paint's not dry yet. And obviously I can go in and pick out detail. I'm going to try and leave the hair alone. Okay. They're done with the kind of textured knobbly flesh parts, which is where this colour's going. I haven't missed a bit. So the question is, am I going to pick a different colour for the face? Or am I going to just do the face in the same colour as the legs? So it looks like one consistent piece. You know what? I think I'm going to just do it. Let's have the face in the same colour as the body. And then I'll do the hair in a different colour. And I'm obviously going to have to pick out the teeth and the eyes to... After I primed this giant's head, I did spot that there was a mould line on the face, which was invisible before I primed, so I did have to remove that earlier. Try not to get too much on the hair. Don't want it to be pooling up too much on the top of his head where it's quite flat. It remains to be seen how this is going to look when it dries, obviously. Nice and just hideously purpley pinky so far. Oh, can't forget the ears. I think I'm going to put more white onto the hair. I accidentally strayed with the purple here. Almost done here. So it says you have to gloss varnish on top of the head so it's shiny. I will take that advice on board. And then I'll decide whether or not to apply that advice later. Okay, so that's going to have to dry now. Then we'll come later on the details. I think he's looking fairly creepy so far. It's hard to judge how it's going to look at this stage because there is detail there. See it picked out by the contrast paint. But I'm not sure how dark it's going to stay when it's finished. What I might do is go back into the crevices and apply more of a wash in certain areas. Then maybe some dry brushing as a highlight. See, I've definitely got options. But put him to one side now. Put the paint holder down here. Perhaps I might have to nab one of those as a second desolator for my Abyssal Vanguard warband. Are you referring to a pair of legs with a head on it? Because I think everyone should own one of those. Okay, let's do some more Hellbane construction, shall we? So I think I'm going to stick this bit on the back. And then we've got some pipes that stick out at the back as well. So we shall do those bits now. Okay, let's see. Seems to slot in quite easily. There is a little socket that they go into. This is the right way round for it. Let's not go that way. That side is nowhere near as exciting. So I think we can just glue that straight in place. I'm going to hold it to make sure it's standing up straight though. And before I do that, in fact, because these parts here are going to be visible, I'm going to scrape them down to make sure they're perfectly flat. Technically, they'll only be visible from pretty much underneath. But just over here. Again, I'm not filing it down since it's resin, so I don't want the dust being... I don't know whether it's any safer material. I do hear horror stories about resin. Off in shaving a lot of fine dust. I mean, half of it's going in my keyboard. Hopefully I'm going to start a trend of people putting giant heads on pairs of legs now. I'd be very pleased if that happened. Okay, time to stick this in place. Just feel like you should drill out that resin backstop and add flashing lights, flashing LED lights, and maybe a disco ball for that dance floor at the top. Well, maybe if I get another one. What I would like to see someone do, because there's a lot of hollow space inside this beast, it'd probably be a way to get the glowing eyes into the head. But that's way beyond my skill level, I'm afraid. Or someone will do it. Bring in the back plate now. Make sure it's nice and upright. That looks pretty straight to me. I'm just wiggling it a bit before it fully dries, just to make sure it's got the optimum contact. I think we are good there, so I'm just going to let that dry for a minute. Let's have a look at the comments. Anyone got any questions or anything you want me to discuss this afternoon? Hoping to be doing this for at least another half an hour. There's at least one guy who put glowing eyes into Space Marine heads. That should be no problem for someone who knows what they're doing. Yeah, there are tiny lights available. I've seen some pretty crazy things with what have I seen in King's? In a nice, might have been a Varangur army that I've seen with lots of lights on it. Seen a few, and not in person, but in pictures I've seen some really weird things over the years, like Christmas themed armies with Christmas lights. Anytime I see a unit with a base that's really built up and tall, first thought is, I wonder if there's some kind of battery power inside that base there. It's going to turn on some lights. See, what would be really nice would be if someone made a unit with either glowing eyes or some other kind of glowing, and then the more wounds the unit takes, the dimmer the light gets, or it changes colour. Probably someone out there who's already done that. But there's an idea if anyone wants to steal it, because I sure as hell ain't. Pep says, can I ask your thoughts on Elves? I'm trying to retool my army for 3rd edition, but cannot settle on a list. Well, Elves were very, very tasty in the previous edition. And the archers were insanely good. The fact that they were just more accurate than other people's archers, and then if you got into combat with them, it was still scary because they had their elite. And now I think they only have elite for range. So it totally changes how I feel about them as a list. And did the Draken Riders lose Nimble as well? Which was another issue with them. They had a lot of flying options. Take multiple dragons, Draken Riders, and then Archer Hordes, and sometimes you didn't need much else. So I think they did lose Nimble, the Draken Hordes, or the Draken Riders. I think you can take regiments or hordes. So just those two changes, I think, brought them back into line. What do I think is actually good for them in this edition? I've looked through their list. I don't think I've played against many elf-based lists in this edition. I've played some of the elf sub-lists. I don't know if I've played a pure, kind of like the previous edition kind of elf list with the flyers and cavalry archers. They still seem very solid though. They're just more reliable than other armies with that elite. More reliable with the shooting. Just paying a bit more. I'm not sure if their bolt throwers are still tasty. Imagine they. I think flying big beasties are still just as good now as they were before. I was expecting them to get hit with a severe nerf. I was thinking that big giant Titan sized flies lost Nimble, but as far as I'm aware, most of them haven't. I know the Abyssal Dwarf fly or hasn't lost Nimble. Elves, their dragons I think have a nice ranged attack, don't they? Which is always nice because you can land outside of people's arcs or threat areas, shoot them, and then if they stay there, charge them, and if they turn around to face you, charge them with something else. Okay, let's expose the rear end of the Hellfane, see where these are going. So let's have a look at the box to see which way around these bad boys. That's going to be that way. Now the curved part of the pipe is facing towards the front. And then the straight ones go next. And then the really bendy ones go at the bottom, like so. Okay, let's do it. So I'll stick the middle one on first. maybe a little bit that I've missed in the cleanup on the end of this. Is this gonna stay? Kind of looks like it, doesn't it? I keep sure it's all perfectly straight so it doesn't drive me nuts later. Okay, I think that looks pretty straight. On to the next. I think these two pieces are the same. Most. I don't think it matters. Crevice. Pieces hold in place. Angle. Okay, looking good so far. And let's have the bendy one on this. That's going to be yeah. Place. Mr. Von Junk says, lovely detail, like Hellboy, the Mantic resin is ace. Big fan of the Mantic so far. You know, if my opinion changes over being moments. At least nothing that I wouldn't expect resin anyway. Okay, let's turn him around and do the other side. Hellboy models are nice actually. I just have never really had knowledge or interest in boy. So I've just used it to get a pair of legs for this beast. Now that that's drying, it's actually looking quite good, I think. It is going to require more work though. How big is the official base for that? If you're talking about the Hellfane, then it's the Titan base, which is 75mm, which it definitely does not fit on. Put it on diagonally, it just about fits, but who would want to do that? Apparently, the Hellfane was originally supposed to be even bigger, but they realised how huge it was and quickly scaled it down. It is a thing companies like to do, though. Make models that are too big for the bases they're on. It's a bit annoying in games like Kings of War, where the bases are going to end up being pushed up against each other. Right. Only a mild annoyance. Usually people get around it by turning the model to face in a different direction. As long as you make it clear to your opponent you're doing that. Which way it's supposed to be facing. Tear the back legs off and reposition it as rearing up. That is certainly an option that someone could try if they want to have the dwarves that are on it kind of hanging on for dear life. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing someone that version. Okay, all these are looking fairly even here. I think I'm pretty satisfied how they're looking. So when it's finished, these guys will be standing on it. Not falling off. The idea, that guy that was on it, then the guy with the hammer in the middle like that. So let that dry properly, put that off to one side. See how this guy's doing. Still a bit of wet. Fairly hideous though, which is the idea. Let's have a look at these other grotesques now. I need 2 more assembled to create the horde. So put these 2 together. already without the arms, because I might want to repose the arms. I'm not going to make the other one with 3 legs just now, because I don't need him at the moment. So, which arms are they supposed to have? This one. So I think this is his arm. Wrong. Which guy is he? He is this one. So yeah, it is the stabby arms. So he has this one like that. Right. But yeah, there we go. So that's how it's supposed to go on. But I don't want to do that because it's just the same thing again. So I'm going to try and put the wrong arms on them, or just repose the arms. Sure, he could tolerate living with this arm. And what about this one? A bit, yeah, like that. I think that would work. So he would work with those arms with a bit of chopping. What about this guy? That would be a bit of a strange angle. Might have to do some chopping to get it. That across him. I don't know if you can see that very well from this angle. About the other side. Yeah, there'd definitely be some chopping required for this guy to have his arm. About this arm over here. And there's some potential here, perhaps. That one, I'm not sure if it really goes over here very well. The other option, of course, is to use the arms that nature intended, but reposition them somehow. That's how it's supposed to go. Yeah, like that. Like going across his body like that. That looks like it'd be fairly easy version. And then the other arm is supposed to go like that. I could aim it down. Kind of like, my hands are in the way, but you might, yeah. I think that looks pretty cool actually. Now what about this guy? What options do we have with his arm? Moment, this one is it's very easy to get lost with doing with these because but them being grotesque, it's not immediately obvious where the arm's supposed to actually. There's that one. The other one is Okay, there we go. So that's how it's supposed to be. Finally, again. So if we try and angle that one upwards a bit more, and this one perhaps bring that down. Well, we'll think about that, but I think this one is the easier one. So we said this arm, repositioned so it's across his body. This one maybe tilted down a bit. I think that would be a very interesting pose. So we'll work on this guy first because it's more obvious. It jumps out at me what to do with this guy, and it's going to be easier to chop the arm, I think. So there we go. So it's like he's winding up a swipe with it if it's pointing across his body. Normally he looks like this. Don't want the same pose twice. So let's see how this. Going to be some green stuff work at the back. Probably see there's going to be a crevice here, the armpit region, but that is not a concern at all. So I'm tempted to just stick that straight on in that position and hold it there, and then go in and green stuff the gaps later. Let's do it. Got 9 people watching right now. We're all thoroughly entertained. I think you have to superglue my finger to it, which is fun. Just hold it here until it sticks. Too much. Anyone got any thoughts on conversions of miniatures that are single pose? Especially with the way everything's 3D sculpted now, poses fit together and the models fit their pieces perfectly slotted in, which sometimes doesn't leave a lot of opportunity for conversions. So am I happy with how that's looking now that it's stuck? Obviously when it's finished sticking I can cut bits off still. Just thinking whether it would be better to cut a bit out so it fits even better. And I think we will. It was only attached from a narrow point. We're actually going to cut off, I'm going to cut off a bit here. Just a little bit. Then we'll put it in place. That's looking quite nice, I think. The bit I shaved off just allowed it to be a slightly tighter touch of the model. Might be tempted to take even a bit more off here. It's even more of a snug fit. Take a bit off this part of the model. Just little tweaks, and I think we're getting there. Yeah, so this guy is going to look cool, I think. That claw, his face like that. Easy enough to sculpt the shoulder back into some semblance of how it's supposed to look. The other claw, wanted that pointing downwards a bit, didn't we? So it's not interfering with this. Would it actually touch if I had it in its natural position, this claw? The arm nub I don't think needs to be removed, because this is the angle I want, and then I'm going to green stuff over it. So I could get a closer touch if I took the little nub off it, but it's the way it is at the moment, it's actually giving me more of a contact point to glue it in. So I'm going to keep that there and then green stuff around it. If I wanted the arm to be more angled upwards, then I could definitely take off the nub there. So this arm could actually go in its natural position. Let's see. There's the natural position there. Is one arm enough for conversion? I think it does make the pose look sufficiently different actually, so I might just leave the other arm its natural downward position like that. Let's compare the original and the conversion. I think they are sufficiently different, even with one arm in the same position. I'm not convinced I need to change the other arm. So we might just stick that one in as nature intended. Of course, I could just stick it up in the air like that. I don't think it's necessary. So I think this arm will just go back into its natural. We'll glue in now. And then if I get more of these in the future, if I want to do a second horde, and I want to make them look sufficiently different again, I could then reposition this arm instead on the. You don't always need to do a huge, massive version job to make something look. Just about doing enough so they're not the same. Yeah, I think that looks really cool now. That'll look better, obviously, when I've green stuffed in the crevices and then smoothed it down again. Yeah, I'm happy with that, so let him dry off. And we have to decide what to do with this other guy now. So that's his downward arm. Bring it upwards so he's stabbing it forwards a bit. And his other arm's also doing that. So we could try and get both of his arms pointing forwards in the same way, like going for a double stab. Here's the standard pose. One down, one up. I could just reverse them. But there's already model there with one down, one up. Do I want to go for that again, or do I both of them up? So what do we think? I think I should try and get the pose like that. Both of them facing forward. In which case we wouldn't need to reposition this arm at all. This arm, I would need to lose some of the muscle, this bit here. Then I'd have to re-sculpt a bit. Sit underneath there. Let's do it. Start chopping. That's enough. There. Obviously don't start chopping things unless you're confident enough in your ability to sculpt details. Okay, that's looking pretty good there. So let's try gluing that on and see how it looks. We're going to have a nice forwards thing here. I'm going to go in there with green stuff later and smoothed out, of course. The other arm can just go in its natural position, which is and there's 5 of them going on the horde, so the ones that are technically the same pose go in up. Don't have to be. So there's his pose compared to this guy. So one's got his weapon pointing directly down, the other one's pointing it very much forwards. still get in there and do a bit more hacking on this if I want to change it more. So do I? I want to get it even more angled upwards. Drop a bit more off the arm here. Bit off here as well. I think that looks better in that position. So let's put some more super glue in there. Says he looks like he's standing over a vanquished foe. I agree, actually. It looks like he's just finished killing something and then he's surveying the battlefield in front of him to see what's next on the menu. This guy looks like he's just about to charge and stab somebody. You can see there's a lot of green stuff work to do under his armpits. Yeah. But that's fine. That's within my wheelhouse. Except his arm's fallen off. The other thing you can do, once it's actually stuck, if you're not confident in the connection you've got, you can actually drill through both pieces together since they're superglued, and then stick a pin through it as well. Which will just make it extra secure. Because I've been fiddling around with this so much, there's a lot of super glue on there now. Just going to hold it in place for a minute. I'm going to try. Steve says, afternoon, frog monster went off today, excellent. So yesterday I was talking about how I wanted another frog monster so I could chop the legs off and make another Dread Fiend. And Steve messaged me with an offer of a trade for some of my stuff. So that has gone ahead. Hopefully I'll be able to get out to the post office whenever it's feasible and safe to do so. Currently holding this guy steady while his arm dries. And I'll show you the conversions we've done in a minute. Definitely going to be tempted to pin this guy's arm in place because it's not a very great connection. So there he is. And here's the original pose. And his arm's fallen off again. But you get the idea. I'm trying to find an angle I can hold it in so the arm will actually stay. Okay, we're looking good now, I think. almost. Tempting perfection here, and then I'll spot that it's slightly off and then have to reposition it, so the drying process has to start again. When you're chasing perfection, these are the sacrifices that have to be made. So while I'm holding this guy together, we contrast painted this creature, which looks like it's going to need more work, but that's definitely a good start, I think. Quite hideous already. I think I might want it to be darker, so I might even do another coat of something. I think overall it's looking pretty cool. And we've got the Hellfane to this stage so far. Nice progress on there. And then also got the crew for the Hellfane assembled today as well. Okay, there he is. Gonna require green stuff, but I think just about ready to be down now. So let's into one side, and I'll show you the other conversion that I did. So here's the original pose for the other Grotesque. That's how he's supposed to look. And here is the conversion pose. He's looking across his arm like he's just finished hacking someone up on the ground. So this is pre-slice up the enemy. This is post-slice up the enemy. And it totally changes the feel of it. Just that slight difference in arm position tells a totally different story with it. So I'm pleased with that one. The other one was more difficult, but I think that's looking fine as well. Contrast paint I used was, let's see, what's it called? Magos or Majos Purple. That's how it looks for now. And obviously I haven't done anything with his hair yet. I'm tempted to leave his hair white, you know. I think that would actually be quite weird looking. Obviously I'm going to do more on it, a bit of a wash, maybe some dry brushing and highlights on it. But I'm thinking white might actually look quite cool for his hair. He's an old grizzly guy. I've also got this pink contrast paint, which looks like it's going to be a bit darker than the purple. Might try that as well. I've got the white contrast paint here, so I could use that on his hair. And obviously I've got an orange one as well. I'm going to be using that on the Grotesques, at least a little bit. In a few days, or whenever I get round to painting the Grotesques, you'll see my precise technique that I'm going to use on them. It's going to involve dry brushing, contrast paints, highlights, washes. Same technique I used on my gargoyles at the base of the ancient half-breed, seeing that model. So, what shall we move on to? Shall we go back to the old Hellfane now? Because there's only 3 pieces to stick on it, but they are the pieces I've been dreading the most. So, let's have these fences. So this one goes on this side, little slots underneath for it to sit into, get it in spot. That one goes on that side, this one is on that side. Then this front panel is supposed to touch both of them, I think. So in order to do that, we need it there, do we? It's going to be tight, folks. At the moment, it's not quite reached. So it's going to be something like that when it's done. You can see there is a bit of daylight underneath the front fencing. But in order to get it to match up to both sides and touch them both, need that kind. It's going to be a tricky one. I might not do this on camera. To make sure it's absolutely perfect, and I might have to look at some advice from people on this. Definitely the trickiest bit so far. It's not as straightforward as it looks. Because if I just have it positioned like that, you can see it doesn't come close to touching the fence at the side. It has to be tilted back. And it's difficult to make it reach both sides at once. I'm going to not stick that together just yet. I'm going to seek additional advice on that one before I proceed. Most urgent thing I want to paint anyway is the Grotesques. I don't have a specific list in mind featuring the Hellfane at the moment. So, before I go, should we try and get some more paint on this guy? What should we do? Could paint his hair white again. Let's do a bit of that, shall we? Then I'm going to some paint over that. So let's have a bit of white. And a bit of water. Well, I'm going over all the parts where the purple paint sprayed onto there. Around the ears. Steve, who's in the chat right now, I saw that you were doing a game of tiny scale Kings of War yesterday. That go. Brett suggests he should have an orange tongue. I don't know if I'm going to use any orange on my Nighstalkers actually. It might be time for a change. Although some of the scarecrows do have pumpkin heads, that might be the only orange of it in the army. almost done. Second here now. So what I'm thinking about doing, and I don't know if this would necessarily appeal to people who view this channel, but thinking of starting a second channel and just streaming non-wargaming related PC games on there, especially during this lockdown period. I don't want to be putting non-wargaming PC games on my main channel. The main channel I'm going to stick to anything that's the IP of wargaming brand or something. So we've got the Vermintide and Space Hulk Deathwing, Total Warhammer, Space Marine, Dark Omen, anything like that. But if I want to do any other games, I wouldn't want to put it on the channel. People do seem to like watching games. It's a popular thing, a lot of people do it on Twitch. I don't really like Twitch. Yeah, so if I view your channel and you ever consider switching to Twitch, you may well lose me as an audience member. He says, yeah, 6mm game over FaceTime was great fun. Got to rock my newly painted ogres. Yeah, games over the internet are very possible. There's quite a lot on my channel actually. In the past, I used to play a lot of Relics games that way. Ideal for skirmish games, because obviously you don't need to cover 6 feet, which is why your small scale Kings of War obviously works well. Lots of games of Relics over Google Hangouts. And some Age of Sigmar as well I did over the same thing. I think I might even have some Dread Ball games that I did over as well. Obviously that's difficult if you're playing the advanced rules because you can't look at the cards. Or if you do look at the cards and have your own deck each, you end up with multiple same really powerful card. I used to just play that without the cards. The way it's balanced now, some teams kind of need those cards. Okay, we're very close to being done with whitening up the hair. Anyone got any suggestions for a base scheme by Nighstalkers? Because I want to do something weird that hasn't been seen before. But I'll come up with something, just nothing is jumping out at me. This Dread Fiend is a really grumpy old man. "2 foot by 2 foot board. Yeah, that sounds ideal. Games over the net. I've been pondering running some Kings of War games online. But obviously with bigger size model. Okay, done. Might actually whiten his teeth as well. I think I'd be better off using bone colour with that, so we don't need to do that right now. Put him to one side. And I think we can probably wrap this one up for the day now. 1 hour 43 we've been going. I think that should be enough. Right, I did a handful of demons where the front of the base was green grass and the rear dead to simulate their inimical nature in destroying life as they pass. Yeah, anything like that would be sufficiently unique looking and weird, I think. But I'm not sure. I've been thinking of all different kinds of weird tricks I can do with water effects or mirrors and things like that. But I haven't settled on anything that I think would be perfect. The idea of units climbing out of like vortexes or black holes or pits and things like that, it'd be really difficult to pull off, I think. But every time I start a new army, I do try and get creative and do something different with the basing. As you've seen with all my recent Kings of War armies, before I'd done the goblins, pretty much every army I had was really, really basic basing, which would have been grass. The goblins, I went for snow. I've got some tufts on there. I added some different decorations for bases as well. Then when I went on to the undead Rordians, the skeleton halflings, there's quite a lot of work gone into those bases. There's tons of milliput on there. There's sand over the milliput. There's several different kinds of grass. There's water effects. And then with the Abyssal Dwarfs, it's a simple effect, but it's something different again. It's the lava with the crackled earth over it and the orange crystals on the bases. So I would like trying something different with the bases each time. Just getting it right, because once you commit to it, you have to then do the entire army that way. So it has to be right. And take a lot of pondering. Who says colour shifting paints over the bases? Something like that would be a possibility. That would look sufficiently weird. I'll put it in the maybe pile with the other ideas. I think tomorrow we might green stuff some of the armpits on these guys and then continue with the painting as well. So you can very much look forward to that. And let's start wrapping this one up then. So thanks to everyone that's currently watching and to everyone that was watching earlier. I've had quite a few people drop in and out as it's been going along. I don't expect people to sit there for the entire 2 hours and watch these things every time. People do have lives of their own, even if they're in lockdown. I'm sure there are other things they can be doing with their time. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description. all the social media down there, my Facebook group, Twitter, and all that shenanigans. Also, don't forget to check out all the various fundraising sources down there if you want to give me all your life savings. Just start saying all this right at the beginning of the video like a real hardcore YouTuber, shouldn't I? That's how you really get the big view donation. Open up the video by telling them to subscribe. Then tell them that the video was brought to you by the generous donations of the audience. And then people just flock to PayPal and start unloading cash. I think that's how it works anyway. I haven't tried it. Anything else I want to touch on before I go? Tomorrow I'll probably do another one of these, probably. And at some point I want to carry on with Space Hulk Deathwing. So I'll do another mission on that either tonight or tomorrow, probably. And whenever Mr. Remington Steele is available, I'll carry on with Vermintide again. So you can look forward to all that juicy, sizzling content. And if you've watched this far into the video, let me know what kind of games you would rather see. On the PC, obviously, and wargaming themed games. So Space Marine, Space Hulk, Dawn of War, Total War, Dark Omen. Quite a lot to choose from. So with that, all that remains to be said is good night out there. Whatever you